I get it, you're staring at the back of a trailer, watching those little wheels sit right on the dock lip, and you're thinking, if I get the wrong ramp, I'm just adding another headache to my day. The last thing you need is to spend a few bucks on a wheel riser that can't handle the weight, then have to call someone else to fix the mess. You want to know if this piece of aluminum actually lives up to the hype, and if it's worth the money for the kind of loading you do every week. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into the world of trailer wheel risers, the first thing that stood out was how many options promise heavy duty, but hide the real limits behind vague language. Most of the time, the trade-off is between a cheap steel frame that rusts and a pricier aluminum design that stays bright but can flex under extreme loads. The Bluff Manufacturing AWR624102 sits squarely in that middle ground. It's built from a solid aluminum alloy, which means it won't corrode the way steel does in a damp dock environment, and it's lightweight enough that you can lift it by hand without a crane. Let's talk about a typical scenario. Imagine you run a small delivery service and you're pulling a 10-foot utility trailer loaded with pallets of paint cans, drywall sheets, and a few heavy power tools. The dock you use is about 3 inches lower than the trailer's wheel axles, which is a common mismatch that forces you to jack the trailer up or risk scraping the wheels on the concrete. That's where the Bluff riser shines. The 102 millimeters height lifts the wheels just enough to clear the dock lip. And because the design includes cutouts that you can grab with your hands, you can slide the riser into place without needing a forklift. I've watched a couple of shop owners do the whole maneuver in under a minute. Grab, set, back the trailer in, and you're good to go. Now, the strength of the product isn't just in the material, it's in the engineering of the tread. The bottom of the ramp has a non-skid surface that grips the concrete, even when there's a light drizzle or a thin film of oil. In practice, that means you can trust the trailer not to slide backwards when you're loading the last few boxes. One of the real-world tests I saw involved a forklift pulling a pallet onto a trailer that was perched on 2 of these risers. The forklift's fork tip actually pressed into the non-skid tread a little, but the ramp held firm, showing it can handle the side pressure that comes from loading from the side rather than straight on. Who should consider buying this? If you run a fleet of a few trailers, do regular dock loading, and you've been frustrated by the wobble that happens when the wheels sit directly on the dock edge, this riser is a solid upgrade. It's also a good fit for hobbyists who take their boat or camper trailer to a marina where the slip is a few inches lower than the trailer's axle. The lightweight aluminum means you can lift it onto a boat trailer without breaking a sweat, and the cutout grips keep it from slipping while you're aligning the trailer. On the flip side, if your operation is purely on the road and you rarely use a dock, say you're a long-haul driver who only does a few quick load-offs at a warehouse, then the extra cost of a dedicated riser may not add enough value. Likewise, if you regularly haul loads that exceed 5,000 pounds per wheel, you'll want to double-check the load rating. Bluff lists this as heavy-duty, but the exact max weight per riser isn't printed on the packaging, so you'd need to reach out to the manufacturer for confirmation. That's a small but important hidden step for anyone pushing the limits of a trailer's capacity. One practical weakness I noticed is the width of the riser's base. At 24 inches, it fits most standard wheel configurations, but if you have a trailer with unusually wide tire spacing, some off-road or agricultural rigs, it might not sit flush. In that case, you'd either need to buy an adapter or look for a wider model. It's not a deal breaker for most users, but it's a nuance that can catch a buyer off guard if they don't measure their wheel track first. Another subtle point is the pairing requirement. The riser is designed to work in pairs, which makes sense because you want the trailer level. However, if you only have one side of the dock that's lower, perhaps an uneven concrete slab, using just one riser can tilt the trailer and cause more trouble than it solves. So the product works best when both sides of the dock are at the same height, a condition that most commercial docks meet, but a home garage might not. Overall, the value of the Bluff AWR624102 comes